Hi, and welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and this is another episode of Behind the Sessions. I'm going to be talking about mental load today. The transition from end of school year into summer and being in the summer, it's a transition of different types of mental load as well. During the school year, you're navigating schedules, lunches, drop-offs, pickups, extracurricular activities, you name it. There's a lot of stuff on that list, and it is one type of or one version of mental load, and that's this kind of school year version, or if it's daycare, or if it's whatever it is related to childcare. When you shift into the summer, things just are different. You might have kids at home, toddlers, babies. There might be more people in the house than usual. You might have less of a break than you usually do. And there's more sound. There's more potentially even immediate need with more people in the house. And shifting from, if you will, like school time into summertime also requires a transition in how you think and what you're taking care of and what kinds of things you're juggling. And sometimes with the summer comes more responsibility. Sometimes, especially for like the default parent or the person who usually takes care of a lot of the details, there can be more to manage. You know, there could be summertime daycare or summer camps if that's what your kids are doing. Or there could be travel happening. What I'm already hearing from moms with littles is that type of stress is definitely showing up. Having to navigate schedules in a different way, having to navigate the child's needs in a different way, having to navigate their own needs as the mom in a different way, and trying to figure out how to navigate all of that with their partner. Now, the variety of partners varies. So some partners are more involved and more co-parenting, and some partners are less involved and don't take on as much of the household work or the mental and emotional labor, keeping track of appointments and that kind of stuff. So obviously this can vary, the type of load that you have or how it feels for you, depending on what type of partner you have, if you have a partner, if you have other types of support, family support, friend support, that kind of a thing. But for a lot of people, the mental load is also an invisible load. It is a labor of thinking, remembering, organizing, planning, keeping the household, the family, the you name it, running. And it's not just task-based for most people. It's not just task-based. It's not, I need to run to the store to get groceries. It can also be keeping tabs of who needs new clothes. Like, is this kid growing out of the clothes that they have? We're transitioning into the summer. Do they have summer clothes or clothes that are adequate for hotter weather? Or do they need new bathing suits? Do they need goggles? Those types of things that might be sort of like popping up internally in your thought process, and like a long, long list of things to try and remember. So it's other people's needs. It can be, what's for dinner tonight? What are we going to be having for breakfast, lunch, dinner for the whole week? What am I going to have to go grocery shopping for? What thing are the kids actually eating versus what have they been eating and now they're transitioning out of, and they're not going to eat after you buy 500 pounds of watermelon. All of a sudden they don't want watermelon. You have to, try and change direction. That is thinking about doctor's appointments, physicals, vaccines, medications, cold medicine, things that require just the general care of their health, dentist appointments, pediatrician appointments. When are they? Where are they? Who are they with? Are there enough diapers? Is there enough formula? Do we have enough bottles? Am I going to have time to nurse? Am I going to have time to pump? How am I going to feed, this child, how am I going to make sure they stay clean? Do they have all of the things that they need for an outing? If, let's say, everyone wants to go to the zoo, do you have what you need? Do you have the stroller? Do their shoes still fit? Like lots and lots of little details like that. Then there's other things like trips or birthday parties or, summer get togethers. Trying to remember if you even RSVP'd to a birthday invitation. And if you did and you're able to go, did you get a gift? Do you have gift bags? Do you have wrapping paper? Do you need a card? Who else going to sign it? And what about your own kids' birthday parties? When are those? How are they going to be planned? Who's going to come? What are we going to do? What are we going to eat? Lots of those kinds of details. So, I mean, these are just examples of things that somebody who might be the default parent or primary caregiver is thinking about more so than another parent. Or if they and the other parent are thinking about both of these things, and there's also conversations that need to happen, compromises that need to take place, and those kinds of things. So when is that going to happen? Is it going to happen in the wee hours of the night after the kids go to bed when everybody's exhausted? Is it going to happen in the morning when we're trying to get the kids out the door or set them up for whatever they're doing for the day? My point is that it can feel like a constant hum, like a constant thing going on in the background as a backdrop, as a thought process that's, you may be able to be here and having a conversation or even listening to this and thinking about the 500 other things that need to get done. And that feeling of constant demand, constantly thinking, constantly needing to address other people's needs. And by the way, I haven't even talked really about your own needs. Like, have you showered today? Have you eaten today? Is there something that do you have your own doctor's appointment? Can you go to the gym or work out if that's what you want to do? Can you go get your hair cut? Can you hang out with a friend? Is there something for you even on your list? What I hear from a lot of women who are coming in for therapy, who are stressed out in their partnerships and in their marriage, is that there's this other potential to like, yes, my partner is helpful, but I have to ask them to do lots of stuff. They don't just do it on their own. And while their partner might say something to them like, well, just let me know what to do, that's another task for the person who's the primary caregiver, the primary caretaker, is to be remembering all of these tasks, even to have somebody else do them. To remind people, to anticipate needs, to anticipate what's going to need to happen, and to follow up. And certainly, as you can imagine, that can turn into contentious arguments and, feeling nagged and nagging and that kind of discussion. In my opinion, it's not nagging. Not all the time. Sometimes, or many times at least, the people that I'm meeting with who are stressed out in their marriages are so tired. Like, they do not want to ask. They don't want to have to ask for help. They don't want to have to remind somebody that something needs to get done. They don't want to have to follow up. Like, it would be cool if it was just done without even having to ask, or that if, a follow-up needs to happen a couple of times, there isn't an argument about like, why do you keep asking me to do that? Or why, I told you I would do it, but like, it's taken a minute for it to actually get done. So as you can imagine, with even just this snapshot of things to remember, it can take a toll. Constantly thinking about stuff, having to remember details for everybody's life, plus maybe your own if you can squeeze it in, over time is exhausting. Over time it leads to overstimulation. It can lead to feeling emotionally exhausted, to feeling irritable to feeling resentful. It can contribute to anxiety. It can contribute to depression. And certainly those things can potentially lead to sleep disturbance. But yeah, if you're worried or you have a lot on your mind, sometimes that in and of itself can lead to a sleep disturbance or disruption. It could potentially lead to a disconnection in the partnership. It it can lead to even disconnection for herself, or feeling disconnected from what her own needs are, the mom's own needs are. If there's just, constantly feeling like, okay, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it, or it needs to be done now, so I can't wait for anybody to help me do this, which I think just all of this leads to feeling like isolated and alone. And we already mentioned, resentful. But what is really there is, a disconnection in the partnership, in the relationship, that just leads to further isolation. And, I mean, this could go any number of ways, but it's typically not great for a relationship. And just as an example, I've said many times on here, more than two things can be true at the same time. A mom could be grateful for what her partner is doing, be happy with the kids and love them so much. And, partner is kind and willing to help, but only really helps when she asks. And even though she's tracking everything, which includes emotionally what everybody's going through, like she can be grateful and also feel alone. She can be grateful for things and also feel frustrated and resentful. She can love her family immensely, but also desperately need a break because it's a constant pressure or stress and a lot to carry. And what sucks about all that is that not only is she doing all of this, carrying all of this, there's often guilt associated with it. Sometimes guilty just for feeling, frustrated, guilty for needing a break, guilty for needing to ask for more help, and also desperately needs it at the same time. And the narratives we have about moms and motherhood in general these days contribute to this also. You're supposed to be able to do it all, which I think is just a load of BS. You're not supposed to be able to do it all. And you shouldn't do it all because, as we've talked about before, again, this is a family system. This is, everybody who's here who agreed to, have a family together also needs to participate. Ideally in mental labor, in emotional labor, in a holding of all of these details. And when the person feels alone in it, like they don't have that help, it's really, really isolating. So if you're somebody who resonates with this, who is feeling like this, which a lot of moms who are in therapy feel this way, it's not just you feeling like this. You're definitely not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. You don't need to put the kind of pressure on yourself that you might feel to just sort of like grin and bear it, or make it through and not ask for help, or keep pushing without having to, unfortunately, what it can feel like, to feel like you're burdening somebody by asking for help. That narrative needs to go. We need help because people need help. That's just normal. Like, you shouldn't do everything on your own. You don't need to. And I'm talking about a partnership where there are two people in the home. I'm not specifically talking about a single parent or a parent who is married, but let's say their partner's on deployment, or, has a job that takes them out of the house for days, weeks, months at a time. Those are different dynamics and still apply in terms of mental load, but it's harder to apply this when the partner's like literally not there. But if you are partnered, or if a partner is listening to this, partner support is essential. Partner participation is essential. sometimes I don't think they realize how important they are and how impactful they can be in a positive way by co-parenting, by co-managing the household and the family together. How much more cohesive things could feel, how much more in line you could be with your partner. And frankly, a lot of this like disconnection that happens when, one partner is doing a lot and the other partner isn't doing as much, it impacts the relationship in big ways. And I think where, at least in this case, male partners, I'll just speak to male partners for a second, feel it the most could be with intimacy. I've heard this so frequently that, a mom who's totally exhausted from doing all the childcare, all the house care, all the everything all day, partner comes home and mom doesn't like want to be touched, needs some alone time, but is also frustrated by not getting help, is not going to feel like intimacy is at the top of her list. And the, male partner might be like wondering why, like what happened, why aren't we as close or connected as we used to be. And sometimes it's because of this, that the load isn't shared, that and resentment is starting to build. So you actually, as a partner, any type of partner, have a lot of potential in impacting this dynamic and making things easier for everybody by stepping in a different way. So, for example, a partner could sort of own, let's say, like an entire task or an entire domain. That could be like taking care of school lunches or a bedtime routine or dentist appointments. That is that person's job, not just helping with it, but managing it from start to finish, and not approaching it as like, I'm going to help you do what you do all day, but I'm going to do this because I am also a parent and because being involved is important. Another thing I hear a lot is like hoping that partners would anticipate things needing to be taken care of or needing to be done, not waiting to be told what to do or when to do it. And it could be simple things like there's a load of clothes in the dryer that need to be folded, or the garbage can is full, or dinner needs to be figured out, and just doing the thing. And this can include just kind of looking around, noticing like, okay, what's missing? What is potentially needed next? What needs to be done? And kind of stepping in to just do the thing. Another thing that's really supportive is being emotionally present, like asking your partner how they're doing. Like the partner who's a primary caregiver, who's been home, doing stuff. Like, how are you really doing? Not just what needs to be done, but how are you? And to listen and to validate and to try and offer support. And a lot of partners want to fix. And there's nothing inherently wrong with fixing, but sometimes listening and validating and not trying to override what somebody is telling you, their experiences with, a list or how to fix it, but just to be like, yeah, that's tough. That's hard. I can see why you're stressed out. I can see why you're tired. That makes sense to me. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong as a partner. When, like, let's say the primary caregiver mom in this situation is stressed out and overwhelmed, and she wants to share her experience of the day. Like, I've been running around with kids all day. I had to like clean bottles. I had to clean poop. I had to the kids rolled around in the dirt, or the dog got out, or whatever it is. And it was very frustrating, or the baby wouldn't stop crying. And I felt like I was going to lose my mind, and all of those types of things. To be able to just listen and hold space with your partner without jumping into fixing it alone, like just listening is helpful. And, we're not really taught how to do that. That's a skill. but it can be helpful and honestly can help create connection. Another thing that I love to suggest that couples do is having like a check in, however regularly that needs to be. Weekly is great, like every Saturday or Sunday or whatever day that both of you are around during a part of the day where you guys aren't super exhausted already. Like the end of the day is a tough time to check in with each other. But picking a time that works for both of you just to have like a check-in. What's working, what's not working, what can we adjust for next week, what is coming up next week that we need to plan for and communicate about. Those types of conversations can, for one, head off potential arguments later in the week. If everybody has, come to an understanding about what the week is going to look like, it signifies that there's no assumptions about what's going to happen during the week, that each person has been heard and listened to about what their needs are. It's just such a good idea. And there are some other forces at play that might be playing out in the relationship. There are certain ways that we've grown up, roles that we've taken in our family, or ways that we watched our own parents navigate their relationship that we've taken on, even if it's stuff where you told yourself, oh, I'm never going to do that. Sometimes those things sneak in and can be playing out in the relationship. So, like, some self reflection is useful, like thinking through, learning about what gender roles might be playing out in your relationship. And if you both are agreeing to those roles, and if you're not, what to do about that. And so sometimes that, could mean having a discussion as partners. It could mean, again, in this scenario, a male partner, like looking into it, reading about it, following, dads on social media who are talking about, what it's like to be a dad in modern times and having equitable relationships. And there are plenty of those accounts out there. It could be, reading a book on some of these concepts. And it could be going to therapy to help look at and or heal some of your own stuff that you've gone through or been through that's contributing to challenges in your life. At the end of the day, if both parents are carrying equal-ish weight, it's not going to be equal all the time. There will be, differential and, balance to one side to the other. And that's normal. But if over time it's, fairly balanced and both partners are carrying the weight, things just go so much more smoothly. And if you're the mom in this scenario or primary caregiver, what can you do? There are things that you can do as well. What I find becomes really challenging for a lot of moms is not speaking up on this and trying to avoid conflict, trying to avoid arguments, not wanting to be a burden. So they just suck it up and do all the things because they want to avoid, sometimes, rightly so, want to avoid the argument that's going to happen. That does happen. That's a very real thing. To have to defend what your needs are is really rough. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't say it or that you can't say it. Yeah, sometimes you need to decide if you want to enter this particular battle, but I guarantee saying nothing is also going to impact you. Whether it's now or years from now after a pattern has been established, it's going to be hard either way. You can have it be hard now and have a conversation, or have it be hard later when patterns are entrenched and more difficult to shift and change. As again, the mom in this scenario, you can also say no to things. You can set boundaries. You can say you don't want to participate in whatever, all of the school events, or you don't want to take on a particular play date or task in the house. You can say no. And I know that that can be really hard, but for some people, it is imperative. It's very necessary to be able to say no or to pause or to stop, let alone ask for help. Asking for help, again, can be difficult and hard, but asking for help, saying no, pausing, all of those things are a certain type of boundary. You're essentially saying, this is too much right now. I either can't or don't want to do X, Y, or Z. And my gosh, it's also okay to not want to do things that you don't want to do. Another thing that is really hard sometimes, especially for moms who are experiencing anxiety, is to fully let go of a task that you want somebody else to do. So, for instance, like if this is laundry, because laundry is forever, if this is a task that you don't want to do, and you've talked to your partner about it and they're going to be taking it on, let them do it. Even if it's not how you would fold it, even if socks go missing, even if it's, not exactly to your standard, that's okay. They can take the task on. They can do it in their way, and their way might be just as good, or it might not be. But if they are not, left to do the task, and let's say you're like over their shoulder or constantly correcting them or that kind of a thing, they're going to feel less like doing the task, for one, but it also can make them feel like they're not doing a good enough job. Like they need practice. Sometimes people who, I'm thinking of like guys who, let's say, didn't have a father who did these tasks, are doing them now in a marriage for the first time and learning how to be a partner in a way that their fathers were not. They might not have had to navigate this before. And so maybe as the mom, have had plenty of practice, taking care of stuff and doing laundry, but maybe your husband hasn't, or your partner hasn't, and they might need some time to like develop whatever their pattern is, however they do things. And they're going to need that space to do that. Another way that can be really helpful is to talk to other moms, finding community, finding friends, finding support groups that can validate your frustrations and validate how you feel. Just as a note, I would be cautious a little bit about groups that are just sort of dad shaming, because that can get a little toxic. It can get a little not helpful. But there's also sometimes you just need to go and like complain about your frustrations or vent about your frustrations with your partner, and that's fine. But if it gets to a point where that's all that it is, then you got to ask yourself if that's still supportive to you. But outside of that, having support of other moms where you can be in community and have connection is incredibly important. And finally, you do need to be on the list. You do need to put yourself on the list. You might need some alone time. You maybe want to or need to write down your thoughts, like journaling. Or maybe you just need some silence, just straight up no sound, which is a real thing. Or you could need therapy. You could need a place to really talk about your kind of inner workings and how you're being impacted by stuff in a safe and supportive place with a therapist who can help you figure out what is going on for you and how to cope and manage. Essentially, all of the things that I'm talking about today is to just validate that if you're feeling this load, mental, emotional load, the labor of taking care of a lot of tasks, most of the tasks, it's a real thing and it's heavy. And especially if you're carrying it alone or often feel alone, it's even that much more important to have community around you. And for you to know that it doesn't have to be this way. You may be in a pattern or a habit with yourself or with your partner or with other relationships where you take things on that you don't have to. for any number of reasons you might be doing that. But it can shift and it can change. It might take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but when you acknowledge what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, when you state it out loud, name it, talk about it, put your feelings out there, share it with other people, you can start to shift and change. Let alone, taking additional steps to care for yourself differently and ask for your needs to be met differently. And you definitely need validation from partners, and that, to the moms, you deserve that validation. You deserve that recognition. You deserve the rest. You deserve relief from carrying a lot of this. And to the partners out there, as I mentioned before, your presence is really important. Your participation matters more than you know. You have the potential to really impact the dynamic of your family, impact the health and wellness of your family by co-parenting, co-partnering, co-doing this life, the details, and that helps you remain and stay connected to your partner as well. So for you moms out there or partners out there, or anybody who's really feeling this, that you're carrying the primary load, and this episode is for you. If you know somebody out there who struggles with this or has a dynamic like this in their partnership or in their life, send them this episode so they can think through this for themselves too as they reflect on the things that I've been talking about today. Even if nothing happens, like dropping a little seed as something to think about helps bring perspective and helps bring light to what somebody might be experiencing. And those could potentially be the first points, the first steps of the change that they need for the relief that they deserve. So I'll wrap it up there. If you haven't yet subscribed or followed on any of my social channels, on any of the podcast platforms like Apple or Spotify, or on YouTube, please do that. We'd love to have you there so you can see and hear all of the episodes as they come out. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.